time being quarantined, I was about 15 or 16, and I was hospitalized and later diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. And during that process, while I was hospitalized, I didn't find out right off the bat what the diagnosis was. So I ended up having to stay at the hospital for about a month before I could leave. During my stay at the hospital, I was not allowed to even leave the floor that I was staying on. I could walk around the halls, I could watch TV, I could stand and walk around, but I couldn't even go outside. At that time, although I grew up in the church, I didn't really have a strong relationship with God or a heavy awareness of His existence in my life. And so most of those days I spent crying at night or just in this bitter tension every day. It was so many years ago, so I don't remember much, but I do remember that it was a dark time because I didn't know what the future held, and I was stuck and I had no control over what was happening. No amount of visitors, no amount of entertainment, no amount of binge watching shows, nothing could bring me comfort in that time. That was just the beginning of 8 years of many more quarantine experiences to come. During those 8 years, because of the treatments I was taking and the side effects of the medications, my immune system became really compromised. So not only was I dealing with living with an autoimmune disease, but also the side effects of the drugs that I had to take. Because of my compromised immune system, I was getting sick so often with different flus, colds, everything you could think of. Some of those quarantine periods lasted from 3 days to even 6 weeks. There were times where I was in so much physical discomfort that no show, nothing could distract me from what I was feeling. And again, in many of those experiences, I didn't know when it would be over. I didn't know what the future looked like. But little did I know that God was working in me. In the beginning processes, I would mostly just cry and just vent to Him about my sadness. Sometimes I'd even pray suicidal prayers, just asking God to take me, asking God why He would allow me to live a life like that. I don't remember when the shift happened, but I remember there was this one time that I had the flu and I was puking in my bathroom, and I was on the bathroom floor in the middle of the night crying of frustration. And in that moment, while I was there on my bathroom floor, a thought came to my mind, and I began to just ponder and think about how even though I changed every day, even though my health and my circumstances were changing every day, God doesn't change. And I remember as I started thinking about how He doesn't change and how He's the same, that everything in my body just began to experience that as full truth. Hebrews 13:8 says, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. I remember in that moment, everything changed. I felt so overwhelmed with joy and gratitude to be alive. And I remember just bawling and puking and then crying and worshiping. I actually lifted my hands and I just put music on and I just started saying, wow, God, you're so good. And I had the flu, so I was puking, and with like every breath that I could get, I would just say, you're good and you're faithful and you love me and I'm loved by you. And it was just an intense experience that I couldn't believe that my body could experience physical suffering, but that my soul could be so overwhelmed with joy and satisfaction and hope. That experience completely changed me. That was one of the first times that I truly saw that physical circumstances did not outweigh God's goodness. I wish I could say that that was the last difficult chapter of quarantine experiences in my life, but unfortunately, I did go through many, many more. Things got way worse before they got better. Again, this was an 8-year process, so there were many more sick days, many more days where I was forced to be home. And many of those days I did experience depression, I did experience sadness, I did struggle. But because of that one experience, every single time I was at home in that dark place, or every time that I was sad, I knew deep down that I could have that experience again, even if my body was suffering. And every experience after that, I began to pursue that as my pain relief every time. Rather than binging on Netflix shows or just random things, I would put worship music on and uplifting, encouraging music. and I would just begin to worship and just say, God, you're good, you're faithful, your promises are true. Some of the experiences after that were still too painful to bear, and sometimes I would try to mimic that experience again. Sometimes I would try to get into worship again and see if I could experience His presence so that I could escape what I was going through. But I didn't always feel the presence of God like that first experience, but I began to feel it in a different way. There were times where everything in my body and mind just said, there's no way that God is good. There's no way that this life is worth living. But each of those experiences, I would go to Him and I would vent to Him and tell Him how I felt. And I would still go to the Word and try and find promises that I could hold on to. And although He didn't always manifest in that joyful way where I was joyful and gladly worshiping even with my suffering, He did continue to show up. He showed up in the sense of comfort. Moments where I just felt that I had no strength left, no motivation to deal with anything anymore. I always felt just a strength in me. I always felt like deep down my spirit knew that I could trust Him. My spirit knew that He was with me, and not only was He with me, but that He was hurting when I was hurting, and that I wasn't alone. And that's where my faith really grew, where I knew that I had experienced Him so real in my life that I didn't need any more supernatural experiences to trust Him, but that I could really walk by faith and not by sight. Although those days seem to be far behind me, I'm really grateful that I went through that. I'm really grateful that I've experienced God the way that I have. I know that those moments of difficulty have shown me sides of God that I never knew I could even experience. I definitely feel stronger. I definitely feel ready for anything. James 4:8 says, "Draw near to God, and He will draw near to you." 1 Peter 5:7 says, "Casting all your anxieties on Him, because He cares for you." John 14:27 says, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Not as the world gives do I give to you. Let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid." Thanks so much for watching this video. If you feel encouraged to, please feel free to share it with someone you might know who would really benefit from watching this video as well.